forms, you have modules. Modules are what most people call macros, right? Here's our little modules. And underneath those, you're going to have properties and methods. So that one we ran just a minute ago, the sum macro, right? Here it is. And all this fancy gobbledygook, all it's doing is saying, hey, I want you to go to that cell there, and I want you to go back up 3 rows to here, and I want you to sum those. That's it. End it. And then to clear it, all it's saying is, hey, go back to that section you just were at and do clear. Selection is the function. It's saying, hey, or pardon me, the method, hey, go do this. Clear is the property, meaning clear it out. So if you look at that a little differently and you slide this over and you say sum numbers, okay, 6, got it. That ran this little section right here. Clear, right? That ran this little module right here. That's all it did. It said, go into this range, select it, and clear it. A5, A5, clear it. That's all a macro is doing. It's really, really simple. That said, what I wanted to show you is sooner or later, you get into something like this, where someone gives you raw data. I think the question earlier was about, oh, hey, here's a bunch of raw data I have to clean up. Well, here's our raw data. And you don't want to do this every day, so you want to give it to Goss. Well, you have to give instructions to Goss or to analyst, whatever. You can actually build your little click instructions, right, that will show you, oh, okay, you got to put this stuff here, line 1, line 2. And for those of you that don't know, Texas A&M, their motto is Aggies, right? So for all the Aggies, we make them read the instructions again, right? You can just modify that stuff very simply over here in the Visual Basic Editor. Okay, we'll go to here. We'll come back on the instructions there. So you click it, you run your scrub data. Here's what it actually runs, right? It took all that. It changed up our SSNs the way we want it. We uppercased all that, or pardon me, propercased it. And then we put our ages and we added a default for any blank age, okay? Same thing. You want to reset that data because you don't want people writing over it over and over and over. You can assign hotkeys to this stuff this way, right? But every week when you come in, just scrub it. Okay, done. Move on. That's one example of how you can write a macro to do repeat steps. Another one, so on some clients, you may get a lot of SRs. Some clients, you'll get 50, 100 a day, maybe 300 a day if you work on the Kaisers or UHGs or Americans. What you end up doing in this stuff is you end up balancing your process logs and your Siebel workflow, right? And so for big teams, you sooner or later have to come up with a way to accurately map through who gets what and how old stuff are at. So what we've done here is we've taken some raw SR data. You can get this directly out of Siebel, or you can set up a CTS request to have it emailed to you. It just depends on how you want to do it. But what we've got is a situation where someone can come in, they can open up their PC, they can click on the button, and it's going to run through, and it's going to take all this raw data. See all these columns here that came out of Siebel? There's just a bunch of gook, right? And it's going to start listing it. Here's this. Here's the SSN. By the way, these aren't real SSNs. These are not real people as well. The reason I added zip code here is because sometimes on health teams, if you see a bunch of problems in one specific zip code, that means the carrier file went out wrong. It'll grab the priority, so we need to know that. It'll grab the type and subtype for reasons of mapping, which we'll talk about mapping in just a sec. It'll do an open date, and then it'll calculate age and hold days and network days, right? And then it'll say who's the owner of those SRs. The way we did that is by this little section up here, we did mapping rules. If it's a type check, it goes to analyst Jennifer. If it's general correspondence, it goes to analyst Cy, right? That's how all this stuff is done here, right? And when you're done, or the next day, you just clean it all up and run it again, right? So I went through that pretty quick, and before we go back and actually run a macro so you can see how that's done, or pardon me, report a macro so you can see how that's done. Any questions as to what macros are doing? Because I know there is sometimes a false impression of what they will or won't do. Okay. All right, so let's go back here and let's actually record one real quick. So this one was summing numbers, right? Well, let's say we want to add one that's going to add the numbers instead of sum them. So you get to your data, right, and you've got it all lined out. I will tell you this, write down on paper what you're going to do first, right? It just makes life easy. So I'm going to record a new macro, right? I'm going to call this the add macro. And it's going to be in this workbook. I'm not going to give it a shortcut key. And this adds the, I don't know, data list together. Right? Click OK. As soon as you click OK, you'll notice this button changed here to stop recording, and this one down here as well. So here, all you're going to do is say add list up, right? This plus this plus this, right? Yes, that's what I want. And then maybe you like colors. Favorite color. You like, I don't know, blue. All right, that sounds lovely. Then come back over here, stop recording, right? Now, once you actually do that, you can come in and clear all that stuff away. Right? You could have somebody come in and they can run macro by just, here's our add macro here. Let me go through that slower, sorry. Come back to your developer tab, macro, and you can just run it, right? A lot of people aren't going to like that. They're going to want to put a button in it. So instead, what we can do is go to your developer tab. You want to insert a button, which is right here. We're going to assign a macro. That's what this one does here. Yep, we want that add macro. And here, we'll call it the, Norwood add, right? And so now, every time we click that, it'll run that same macro, right? Well, as you can see, when you click on it, it just keeps running it on top of the same thing. That's where you're like, well, gosh, that's kind of obnoxious. I want to report another macro that's called the clean add, right? And in this one, it's going to clear out the add stuff, right? Just like that. Okay. You notice this goes back to, it applies the stop button. You're going to go back here, click, and here's actually a pretty good example. So right now I have it on A9, right? If I click clear all, it's only going to clear A9. So you may say, oh crap, I wanted to grab both cells. That's okay. Go ahead and keep going with what you're doing, right? Click both, clear all, right? Then stop your macro, right? We're going to go back to our developer one. We're going to insert another button right here. This was the clean, right, this time. And we're going to call it clean add, right? So now, here's our add button. Here's our clean button. You see how quickly that actually went to where you didn't see all that fumbling around with the going up and down in the cells? It will move faster than we as humans can interpret it. So if you ever make a simple mistake like that, just keep going. The macro will run through it. So now that you've made those, right, you're going to come over here and you're going to say, well, I really didn't like blue. Well, when you do that, you can actually come back into the Visual Basic Editor, that added Module 6, right? And if you go into the code itself, you're actually going to see different colors. So this is selecting the cell. This is telling to add it up. There's the references where we added stuff. It selected it, and then this is where we're going to go in and start making color changes. Well, color changes actually have different values associated with them. So that was 2. Let's change it to 6 and see what happens. I don't know what will happen, by the way, but we'll find out shortly. Okay, it's going to say, nope, sorry, you can't actually have that. Okay, that's fine. When you go in and debug it, this yellow bar will tell you, oh, okay, that's where something's broke, right? Save that, back, yes, that was fine. There, now it's back, right? Then, if you go in and you find yourself just kind of monkeying with this stuff, what you'll find is each one of these has a different number. So I don't know, let's try 4 now. Maybe 4 will work. It may not. But the color palette, as you go through it, no, it doesn't like that as well. The color palette that is found here, each one of these have a number associated with them. That's why we're able to go through and change stuff. And you may not know the number. You may have to Google the number, or you may just have to sit here and play with it for a little bit until you figure it out. All right. The one earlier that we were talking about on, this is all that reformatting of the data. That's basically how big a normal macro is if you're going to do anything of substance. you'll notice that it is, I don't know, 3 scrolls down. You can freehand every bit of this, right? You don't have to. You can just record the macro, but in case you want to become a programmer, you can actually type all this. And then once you do, you can come in and add your comments. Like I added this comment here about this moves the SSN, or this moves the participant name. Similar to SQL, where you typically have a // or a tick. In Visual Basics, you have a tick right here, which means it's a comment. All right. So earlier this was our instructions. So let's say the Aggies were offended in the crowd. I don't know, a university in Boston. Someone give me a university in Boston, or Massachusetts, or Vermont, or something.
Boston College Eagles.
Boston Eagles. So Eagles. I can't even spell Eagles. Eagles. Please read the instructions again, right? Eagles, they're just not very good at reading things, right? So you go in here, and we went back here. Voila. Eagles, please read the instructions again, right? And you can see that it doesn't take any sort of serious time commitment to do this kind of stuff. Literally all it takes is monkeying around with this project editor, VBA project editor, right? And knowing the difference between a module and an object, right? You're not going to go into this object and change a bunch of stuff. You can, but chances are you will not, right? But you may come in here and they may say, you know what? It's one of those things where we know that it's not so much the Eagles in the room that we got to worry about. It's the Huskies, right? Those are the ones that just can't seem to get it right. Change it? Okay, fine, got it. And who knows? There may be different reasons that you want to do that. It could be something as simple as, hey, it's Monday and we save spreadsheets to both the Q drive and the K drive. Well, that's because, the consultants want to see it. But on Tuesday, we only save them to the Q drive where the client team wants it, right? That's what that stuff is good for. And then, all you do is you just have them run it. Great. Send it. And that's basically what a macro will do for you. It will not do artificial intelligence.
If I can
not going to do
message.
that, right? But it will control what people can or can't do with a spreadsheet, and it will take a very, very manual process, right? Like a labor-intensive process. I spend every Monday taking 3 hours and cutting up a flat file from MetLife. It'll take that and convert that down into about 5 or 10 minutes worth of work every day. And even better, you can then give it to Goss and tell him when Goss says, hey, train me on how to use it, you can say, okay, I'll train you. First, you go in here and you click this button and you file save as, and then the second button, you hit that. There, you're done. Training's over, right? It's just a real useful feature to have scale across either users that you don't want messing stuff up or users that may not be familiar with stuff. All right. I've talked enough on that. What are your questions about macros and or VBA?
Hey, Si, do you know if there'll be any more trainings on macros specifically, or if there's any online trainings in case you come across something that's a little bit more difficult, like you're trying to put in loops or you have data that changes in size every week or something like that?
You bet. By the way, this is my wife and children. Bear with me here. If you go out to you and Mercer here, Mercer Link, Career Link. Coming to Learning. There is a section right here called Books 24/7. Perhaps I went through that a little fast. Career Link, Learning 24/7. Once you get there, there is Books 24/7 is a commercial product that Mercer's paying the subscription fee for. Right here is a Microsoft Office section, right, and they have it for 10 and 13. If you go into these, they have just about everything you can look for, right? So if you're in Excel, right, but Access is another one because not everyone uses Access every day. Excel, right, it will pull up just a large amount of different videos of different things to do, just odds and ends. There's not the greatest VBA one in here, but that said, I will say this will get 90% of the population done. For the 10% of the population that's looking for other stuff, essentially what I think we probably need to do is put together a VBA-only class